She walked into the bank wearing worn boots, asked for $500, and then calmly demanded a transfer of $2 billion. The staff laughed until the system froze and the truth came out. What happened next would expose a hidden fund, shatter assumptions, and leave an entire institution questioning everything it believed about power, race, and worth. This isn't just about money. It's about who we choose to see and who we choose to ignore. On a cold Friday morning in Chicago, where the wind sliced through the streets like a blade and the skyline glinted under the pale winter sun, the doors of Hanover Financial Tower whooshed open with a sterile hiss. The building, a fortress of mirrored glass and polished granite, loomed over Wacker Drive like a silent sentinel guarding the wealth of the elite. Inside, everything was designed to intimidate, from the soaring lobby ceiling that echoed every footstep to the black marble floors that reflected every doubt. People moved with purpose. Briefcases swung in rhythm. Phones were glued to ears, and not a single soul seemed out of place. Except for her. Serena Holloway walked in, invisible and unforgettable all at once. She wore a long olive trench coat that swept around her ankles, and her boots, once a rich mahogany, were now scuffed and weather-beaten. Her hair, braided tightly into a low bun, was peppered with a few strands of gray that she wore like medals. She was in her 40s, maybe early 50s. A black woman with calm eyes that saw everything and gave away nothing. She didn't glance at the concierge, nor did she hesitate at the security checkpoint. She walked straight through, her ID already in hand. "Purpose of your visit?" the guard asked, barely looking up. "Withdrawal." Her voice was low, confident. The guard nodded and waved her through, as if he could sense this woman wasn't to be challenged. She moved toward the teller counters, the sound of her boots soft but steady on the marble. A few people noticed her, some with curiosity, some with disapproval. She didn't fit the usual profile. No designer handbag, no assistant, no noise. Just presence. She stopped at window 6. The teller, Trevor Kane, was in his 20s, a business student working part-time. His tie was crooked, and he hadn't shaved. But his smile was automated. "Good morning," he said. "Morning," she replied. "What can I help you with today?" "I need to withdraw $500. From my personal account." Trevor tapped on his keyboard. "ID, please." She handed it over. "New York State." "Holloway, Serena." The photo showed the same woman in front of him, but younger, less tired. As he entered her account number, the system stalled. A little spinning wheel appeared on the screen. He frowned, then blinked. His screen lit up like Christmas. Miss Holloway." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Are you aware of your account balance?" Serena raised an eyebrow. "I should be. Well, it says here your account has over $2 billion. There was a moment of silence. The air changed. "I'd like to initiate a transfer," she said calmly. $2 billion. I want it moved offshore to an account in Zurich." Trevor blinked again. His hands froze over the keyboard. I'm not authorized for that." "I didn't ask if you were." He stiffened. "Right. I'll call my manager." Within minutes, a floor supervisor in a navy suit appeared. Her name tag read Marla Ridgemont. Late 40s, sharp eyes, tight bun. She didn't like surprises. Trevor explained in hushed tones. Marla turned to Serena. "Ms. Holloway, I understand you wish to transfer $2 billion. "Yes." Marla smiled with the kind of politeness that usually preceded a shutdown. "I'm sure you understand, for a transaction of that size, we need verification. Would you be willing to step into one of our private rooms?" Serena didn't move. "No. I'd like to conduct my business here. In the open." Marla's smile flickered. This wasn't going according to script. "I'm afraid that's not protocol." Serena leaned slightly over the counter. "Neither is having $2 billion in this bank. But here we are." People nearby started to take notice. Phones lowered. Conversations slowed. "Is there a problem?" someone whispered. "Excuse me," another muttered. "Did she say $2 billion? Trevor swallowed hard. He suddenly felt very cold. Marla signaled a security officer to quietly approach. Serena saw it, but didn't flinch. Marla lowered her voice. "We need to confirm the source of your funds." Serena folded her arms. "You already have. I've had this account for 23 years. Every cent is clean. Even so, we must contact our upper-level compliance team. Do what you must. But be advised, every second you delay this transfer, you risk exposure." "Exposure of what?" Serena smiled. It wasn't warm. Your system is already compromised. I suggest you check internal transaction logs for the last 6 days. Look for transfers labeled L4 Delta. Marla's face paled. Trevor stared at Serena like she was a bomb waiting to go off. And across the room, unseen by all, a man in a gray suit stood near the indoor cafe, watching everything unfold. He reached inside his coat, just briefly, then stepped back and made a call. Serena had just declared war, and the bank wasn't ready. On the top floor of the Hanover Financial Tower, where triple-glazed windows reflected the city like a labyrinth of light, Vincent Thorne, Director of Internal Security, was staring at his screen when the emergency line rang. Location, ground floor, transaction desk. Vincent picked up. Thorne speaking. A hushed voice came through. We've got a situation. Serena Holloway just requested a $2 billion offshore transfer. There was a pause. What location did she mention? Zurich. And she mentioned something called L4 Delta. Vincent shot to his feet. He typed rapidly, accessing a restricted subsystem. A string of account logs appeared, data only visible to executive-level clearance. Downstairs, Serena was still at the teller's counter. The air had turned cold and tense. Marla was trying to stay composed. Trevor looked pale. A few customers had begun recording on their phones. Serena stood motionless, her expression unchanged. Suddenly, a discreet internal door opened. 2 men in gray suits emerged, quiet but unmistakably authoritative. One of them was Simon Creeley, head of senior compliance. Ms. Holloway, he said, we'd like you to come with us. For security purposes. Serena shook her head. I'm not going anywhere until I receive confirmation from the board of directors. Simon blinked. She knows about the board? That's not possible. Vincent appeared behind them. His eyes were sharp, calculating. Ms. Holloway, we are currently reviewing a series of unusual transactions associated with your account. We simply need to verify your identity and the purpose of these funds. Serena smiled for the first time. I understand. But if you really want to get clarity, you should start looking inward. Marla leaned toward Vincent and whispered, she knows more than she should. Vincent nodded slowly. Take her to the executive review room. No sudden moves. This is just for verification. There were no alarms. No panic. But the entire lobby had shifted into a quiet state of tension. Serena walked calmly between 2 security officers, like a strategist leading her own operation. Just before the steel door shut behind her, she turned and looked at Trevor. Thank you for being honest, Trevor. Don't let them silence you. Inside a small windowless room on the 27th floor, sterile fluorescent lights reflected off a stainless steel table. Serena sat upright in a black leather chair, hands resting on her lap, her gaze steady and composed. Across from her sat Vincent Thorne and Simon Creeley. The silence hung in the air for a long moment, strategic, calculated. We've reviewed the basic account details, Simon began. Your name, your long-term status as a client, the account activity. But the incoming transfers, especially their size, require further clarification. Serena gave a measured nod. I assumed as much. Vincent leaned forward slightly. What we need to understand is why $2 billion has passed through this account in under a year. Because this account wasn't meant for me, Serena replied calmly. It was meant to hold a transitional fund. A fund from whom? Simon asked. A group of silent investors. Former whistleblowers, anonymous donors, people who no longer exist in public records. This isn't about personal wealth. It's about reparative distribution. Vincent narrowed his eyes. Reparations? Yes, she said. Long overdue payments to communities and individuals affected by historic exploitation. I'm merely a steward. The fund operates on pre-authorized schedules. Simon folded his hands. So why request the transfer now? Because a window has opened. A short one. Some of the donors have influence. They've secured legal silence, temporarily. I have 12 days before it expires. And if we delay? Vincent asked. Then not just the money, but the opportunity vanishes, along with the safety of certain people involved. There was a pause. Simon tapped his pen nervously. Vincent spoke again, lower. You understand how this looks from our side. 2 billion. Anonymous sources. Offshore destination. You can see how red flags start waving. I understand. That's why I came in person. Serena met his gaze. If this gets buried, it will happen from inside this building. The room fell still. A faint buzz from the ceiling lights was the only sound. Finally, Simon nodded slowly. We'll escalate this to the legal review team. Discreetly, Serena stood, smooth and firm. Good. You have until tomorrow morning. Vincent raised an eyebrow. Or, she paused at the door, then turned slightly. Or I activate Clause 7 of the Geneva Protocol. Simon blanched. Vincent sat back. Without another word, Serena walked out, heels tapping sharp and even. The following morning, before the bank opened to the public, Serena stood at the front of a small auditorium inside Hanover Tower. Her appearance was unchanged, simple olive coat, polished boots, no jewelry. But this time, she stood before an audience. 35 bank staff, from tellers to mid-level managers, invited to attend a sudden sensitivity training. Most didn't know why they were there. Vincent Thorne sat off to the side, arms crossed. Simon Creeley sat in the back, taking notes. Serena began without preamble. Yesterday, I made a request. Not for money. For awareness. For accountability. She paced slowly, letting each word settle. Too often, when someone steps into this bank wearing worn shoes, with a quiet voice, carrying no branded handbag or entourage, they're assumed to be small, insignificant, a problem, or a mistake. She paused, looking directly at the younger employees. And yet, sometimes, the person you overlook is carrying the key to something bigger than this building has ever handled. There was silence. Serena turned to the projection screen. A slide showed dozens of smiling faces, workers in mining villages, factory towns, disaster zones. This is what that money was for. Not luxury, not power, but justice. A murmur passed through the room. Then she added, calmly, and every time someone gets treated as less than human because of their clothes, skin, or perceived status, you delay justice. You cost lives. Several staff members looked down, discomfort flickering across their faces. I'm not here to shame you, Serena continued. I'm here because the system taught you to think that way. And now, the system is changing. Vincent's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. Serena closed the presentation. Then she did something unexpected. She asked for questions. A young teller raised her hand. Why you? Why were you chosen to manage that fund? Serena smiled. Because I never wanted the spotlight. And because I've seen what the world does to women who look like me when they rise. Another hand rose. Will you come back? Will you teach us more? Only if you ask me to, Serena said. Change doesn't happen with one speech. It happens every morning, at the counter, in the break room, when you make the decision to listen. As the room emptied, Serena stayed behind with Vincent. Did they approve the transfer? She asked. Vincent handed her a file. Cleared at 6:17 this morning. Zurich confirmed receipt. She nodded. Thank you. Vincent hesitated. You know, when you walked in yesterday, I judged you. Serena looked him in the eye. You weren't the only one. He nodded slowly. But I'm trying to see now. Not just look. She extended her hand. He took it. As Serena walked out of the bank for the last time, no cameras followed her. No headlines. Just the quiet ripple of a system adjusting itself, one thought at a time. Months later, in a quiet apartment overlooking the East River, Serena sat at a small desk beside an open window. The wind danced gently with the edges of an envelope resting on the wooden surface. In her hand was a fountain pen, antique, precise, and passed down from her father. She had used it only once before, when signing the agreement to manage the restitution fund. She began to write. To the one who will come after me. You won't know me, and maybe you shouldn't. What I carried was never meant to be permanent. Power that lingers too long begins to rot, and I promised myself I would be the steward, not the owner. The fund has reached where it needed to go. Not all of it, not yet. But the bridges are laid, and people are watching now. Watching themselves. Each banker, clerk, and intern that met me is now carrying a mirror. Whether they look into it, that's up to them. I've learned something, and maybe this is the only thing worth passing on. The world doesn't change when the powerful make a speech. It changes when the quiet people behind desks decide not to look away. I don't want statues. I don't want stories. I want continuity. So if you find this letter, if it reaches you, ask yourself not if you can change the world, but whether you're willing to lose comfort to do it. She paused, the ink barely dry, the words breathing like coals. Then she folded the letter, sealed it, but did not write a name. She placed it inside a drawer lined with other unnamed letters, records of decisions never spoken, sacrifices never seen. Outside, a knock came at the door. Serena stood, stretched her back, and smiled. Coming, she said. And as the door opened, the light from the hallway spilled into the room. touching everything with warmth that felt like a beginning, not an end.